Finally, my friends, the Heaven Saga of Knights of the Zodiac is coming. And from what it seems, we already have spoilers for Chapter 1 of this continuation. A summary of what happens in the first chapter is circulating on the internet, and it seems this could be a real spoiler of what we will see in the Heaven Saga. Hello, Knights and Amazons. Welcome to the Semperquis Saber channel. I'm Wesley, and today I'm going to show you the spoilers about the Heaven Saga of Knights of the Zodiac. These spoilers are being shared on the internet, and from what it seems, these are official spoilers of what will happen in Chapter 1 of this final saga. Are you curious to know what happens? So go ahead and click like, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and let's get into this awesome video. Semperquis. Masami Kurumada, the original author and creator of this universe of knights, always had the desire to take the story beyond the underworld. After the end of the Hades saga in the classic manga, Seiya's fate was left hanging by a thread, or rather, by the tip of an invisible sword. The legendary Sword of Hades, imbued with the ancient hatred of the Lord of the Dead, pierced Pegasus's chest in the Elysian Fields. Since then, Seiya has been in a vegetative state, confined to a wheelchair with his cosmos sealed by a divine curse. The Next Dimension manga resolved this with a chaotic trip through time, but it is here in the Heaven Saga that the definitive continuity of the story seems to take shape. There are only 2 days left until the official release of the chapter in the weekly Shonen Champion magazine. But as every good fan knows, Cosmo moves faster than light, and some lucky ones have already had access to the Japanese magazine. What we have in our hands is not just an ordinary chapter, it's 22 pages of pure adrenaline, with 8 of them fully colored. And for those who know Kurumada's style, you know he reserves the full-color treatment only for moments of cosmic importance. The cover, by the way, is the artwork released for the promotional card from Gamer's Store, bringing that nostalgic and imposing look that only the master's style can deliver. In this artwork, we have Seiya and Shun wearing their bronze cloths and the statue of Athena in the background. According to the spoilers, the chapter opens with a scene that tugs at the heart of anyone who has followed the story. The reincarnated goddess, who descends to Earth every 200 or so years to protect humanity, is descending the sanctuary's stairs, but something is wrong. For those who don't remember, Athena's sanctuary is a sacred place located near Athens, Greece, protected by mystical barriers that prevent the teleportation of ordinary beings and even lesser deities. It is the command center of the 88 saints divided among the bronze, silver, and gold ranks. The problem is that as Saori descends these ancient staircases, she realizes that her memories are fading again. This is a dangerous echo of past events. Athena, despite being one of the 12 deities of Olympus, often sacrifices her omniscience and divine power to live as a human, which makes her vulnerable to seals and curses cast by the gods. If she forgets who she is, who will protect Earth from the other gods' awakening? While Saori struggles against forgetfulness in the Greek lands, the narrative transports us to a place that should be empty: Purgatory. After Hades' defeat, the underworld and the Elysian Fields were reduced to absolutely nothing. Hades' Cosmo was what sustained those dimensions. Without the god, hell collapsed. However, it is in the midst of this absolute void that a terrifying figure emerges: Kher, the evil goddess of destructive fate. For those who need an update and don't know this character, who has only appeared in a few chapters so far, Kher is the younger sister of Hypnos and Thanatos. Unlike her brothers who serve directly under Hades, Kher is an entity who personifies violent death and cruel fate. She was responsible for planting the seed of evil in Gemini's saga, triggering the rebellion that almost destroyed the sanctuary years ago. She is the master of manipulation, acting where other gods are too proud to interfere. Kher is wandering through what remains of the realm of the dead and finds something that should not exist: the Hapuris of the terrestrial dog star. The Hapuris are the armors of Hades' specters, made from material that comes from the depths of the underworld and responds to the resonance of the 108 evil stars. Even with Hades' army decimated, Kher's power seems to be able to ignore the established laws of death. This is where the twist happens. Kher uses his dark power to resurrect a new antagonist, Jean de Orthros. In mythology, Orthros was the two-headed dog, brother of Cerberus, who guarded Geryon's cattle before being defeated by Hercules. In the context of Saint Seiya, Jean appears as a specter from a lineage that seemed forgotten. However, as a fun fact, It's worth remembering that in the light novel called Saint Seiya Gigantomachia, we meet another character who represents Orthros, the evil two-headed dog, who is one of the powerful Gigas serving the god Typhon. In this book, Orthros is the son of Typhon, being one of the three new Gigas who try to complete their father's resurrection. He faces Cygnus Hyoga and is defeated by his Aurora execution. But going back to the spoilers of the Heaven Saga, Kher explains the current situation to the specter of Orthros, and the dialogue is chilling. She confesses that her strategy for Hades' victory was perfect. She had planned everything and fell asleep certain that Athena would be defeated. When she woke up and saw that her empire, the underworld, and the Elysium simply vanished, Kher was confused. She doesn't understand how she survived the dimensional annihilation, much less how she managed to bring the Spectre gene back. The resurrection of the underworld would take at least 1,000 years after the last Holy War. But she notices something that makes her smile. Athena has disappeared. Here we enter an important technical concept. Athena's Cosmo works as a protective barrier for the planet. As long as she is present and conscious, the seal over Hades' army and other threats remains firm. With Saori's disappearance or loss of memory, the goddess's sustaining power becomes null. The result, Hades' army, which would take 1,000 years to reorganize, now has an immediate opening to resurrect and conquer the Earth. The scene then cuts back to Earth, and we have an exciting moment for the fans. Pegasus Seiya appears, but he is not wearing his bronze cloth. He appears casually in his regular clothes, just like in the last chapter of Saint Seiya Den, where Seiya finds near the sanctuary the hat of the mysterious young woman he saw in that place. That young woman is actually Saori. Seiya climbs the 12 houses and approaches Saori to return her hat. This simple gesture carries a heavy symbolism. The hat can represent the human protection of Pegasus, the care of a man for a woman, setting aside for a moment the relationship between a saint and his goddess. However, the climax is one of melancholy. This would be the final scene of Chapter 1, but if Saori is losing her memories, would she still remember Seiya? Or has he become just a kind stranger amid the collapse of her divine world? By all indications, if these spoilers are real, as everything suggests they are, the first chapter of the Heaven Saga will be exciting. The goddess Kher is rising as a new ruler of the underworld after the death of Hades, Thanatos, and Hypnos, which matches our theory here on the channel that we will have 3 major enemy factions in this saga. One of them is Kher and the Spectres, who may emerge from the surpluses, which are still intact. The other enemies are the gods of Olympus, and finally Kronos, who would be the final villain of this saga. Kher is not a servant of Hades out of obligation, but out of convenience. And if she survived, it means there is a higher power, possibly Kronos himself, who still wants to see the gods board in motion. Jean d'Otros is just the first of many specters to come, and the title of this chapter is Memories of Disappearance, and it serves as a warning. If the Bronze Saints do not awaken their cosmos and memories, what will remain for Earth and Athena is only complete disappearance. And you, what did you think of this plot twist? Did Kurumada manage to surprise you? And most importantly, will Seiya be able to recover his power in time to save Saori and Earth? Leave your opinions in the comments so I know, and of course, thank you for watching this video until the end, and see you next time. Burn your Cosmo to infinity.